Hello everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. So these days, some of our classes have been stopped due to my office schedule. I had lot of works, lot of projects to be completed. So I'm really sorry for delaying the videos. And anyway, from now onwards, all the gate videos, practical approach videos, and basic civil engineering videos, everything will resume as usual. So now in this basic practical approach for structural engineering class, I am Ravi Kumar HS explaining you about designing a simple G+1 residential building. What are the steps involved in that, so that in future classes we can also go for higher stories and industrial buildings and any complex structures. Let's start with this. This, remember, keeping civil graduations, the civil graduating candidates in mind are the student, those who are entering for first step semester MTech structures, and it is first class irrespective of their subjects. Like this is with what are the prerequisites required for this class. So now, as I told you so many times, the main purpose of the structure is to transfer the loads which are coming on the floors to the foundation. To transfer these loads which are coming on the floors to the foundation, we have columns, beams and slabs. Of course, the loads we are applying on the slabs, and on the beams we are applying the wall loads or the partition loads will be there. Then that loads will be transferred to the columns. The columns are the one which are transferring loads to the foundation. As we have discussed in the previous videos, we need to achieve two things, that is safety and economy. So this is what we need to achieve as a structural engineers. So now already we have studied, that's why I told you from the first year basic civil engineering you should think and you should also study what are the important things with respect to practical approach. We have studied different types of loads coming on the building, like dead loads, live loads, wind loads, earthquake, blast loads. Dead load, self-weight of the structure itself, live load based on the purpose of the building, whether it is residential, industrial or anything like that. And then we have wind loads if you are going for hilly areas or if you are going for the high-rise structures. So where the wind speed is more, there we need to go for wind load design. Next we have earthquake loads. Earthquake prone areas. You know that India has been divided into 4 earthquake zones, but it is not zone 1 to zone 4, it is zone 2 to zone 4. So these are the different types of loads. And blast loads, if you are having any hazardous buildings, we need to design it for blast loads. Not only this, there are various other loads also, snow loads, other things, etc. So these are the loads we are applying in point load format, uniformly distributed load format and uniformly varying load format. Already I explained this, what are the different types of loads, what do you mean by, what is the unit of that, what is the meaning of that, all those things has been explained in the previous videos. Please go to that videos and see that, and if you are not understanding that. Anyway, this is very basics class. Then we have the point load here, then uniformly distributed load. Just for revision I am explaining uniformly varying load, and from this we need to understand uniformly varying load, how we are calculating. It is in the form of the rectangle. Just we are taking this as the base and load as the height. So base into height will be the load, and if you are going for this also, this is in the form of a triangle, that will be calculating area of the triangle, that is half into base into height means the load whatever we are getting, W or P, that is in the unit of kilonewton per meter. So this is how we are having the main types of load we are applying, whatever it is, dead load, live load or whatever it is, that we are applying on this in this format. And for this we have the supports like roller support, fixed support, pinned support, simple support. I explained this also. I am not going to in detail to this. Anyway, I will tell you the roller support, number of unknown you need to calculate is only 1. Pinned support, number of unknowns is 2, and fixed support, 3 unknowns you need to calculate. Simple support, of course, it is 1. The difference between roller and simple support, So I told you in the previous classes, this is very important, you need to understand this. So not only that, not only as simple as that we have, and we have other types of loads also. So other things about the supports, not only this, it's not as simple roller support, it is only this. So you need to understand the practical thing. If you look at this, you should able to say what is this type of support. This type of support is fixed support. See, these beams, the steel girders and the steel I sections have been fixed for this on either side, and here you can see this will not allow this to come down, this will not allow to move in horizontal direction, and it will not rotate also. That is fixed support. Then other types of supports like whatever we have, see Sydney Harbour Bridge, here whatever you can see here, it is a hinge support, here you have the roller support. So different types of supports which are giving the resistance, you need to understand all those things. This is the common simple support. Normally simple supports are more common in seismic activity because to allow the releases, it may be moment or it may be horizontal or vertical reaction. So in one direction we are giving the support, for this other direction simple, just as name itself indicates, it is simple support. So this is the main theme of this video. So the prerequisites to civil engineer to design any simple structure is the basic civil engineering. Of course, you should have the knowledge of basic civil engineering as I told just now, and strength of materials, what are the importance, how the materials will be behaving. So all those things will be studied in the strength of materials. Structure analysis 1 and 2, both determinate structure and indeterminate structure you are discussing and you are studying in these subjects. And design of RC structures, in design of RC structures you can remember that you have designed the beams, you have designed columns, then the slabs, and you also designed the footings. So these are the design of RC structures you need to remember. Then we'll go to this. These are the basic subject, these are the basic requisites, that is what you need to understand. We'll go to the parameters to be considered for the analysis and design of a building. So before you are going to design a building, what are the things you need to have in hand? Should be very thorough with that. You should collect that and you should keep it in your mind for the data. In this you have requirement of a client. So that is the main thing. For the client only we are designing the building, and the plan will be available. That is the first and foremost requirement. The client will be having the site, and for that you may be having plan. Normally in the practical sense, in the field, in the industry, the plan will be prepared by the architect people. So architect will be preparing and the client will be having that, and it is not suitable for all the projects. If it is only G+1, it is common person who is building his home, will not go to architect, he will come directly to the structural engineer, so that we are able to plan the based on the requirements of the client. The client requirements may be what are the number of floors, we need to know that, whether it is G+1 or G+2 or basement will be there. So all those information should be collected from the client. The client will be telling that this is the initial stage, main thing will be going for that. Next we'll be having height of the floors, floor to floor height will be there, that you need to understand what are the floor to floor height. Some clients will be preparing providing 10 feet floor to floor height, and other clients will be preparing 11 feet floor to floor height. So some people will be going for 11 feet like 3.35 meter or 3 meters or 3.6 meters. So all this height should be clarified with the client itself. Then some clients, it is Vastu, it's like will be having north, northeast, then some directions, some rooms or some doors will not be allowed for some directions. You should have complete knowledge about that. Almost it is general, and some clients will be having specific differences that you need to discuss with your clients. Then the future scope. See, normally if the clients comes to you, if we ask you to design is building for G+1, and normally you will take one more floor as the future scope. So that is what in future scope there should be the provision to construct the one more floor. Suppose if he is designing, if he is constructing on a G+1, the probability he may become wealthier, and then he may want to construct one more floor, maybe because of different requirements. All those things should be considered, and you should be thorough with that. If it is nothing future scope from the client, you need to design. Normally we will design for one floor, and if the client is telling 2 or 3 or 1 or 2, so we need to design as per that. So these are the requirements you need to collect from the client, and you need to discuss with the client before going to the plan itself, so that in the future we will not be changing the plan. If you are changing the plan after the footing, then it will be a problem. So all these things will come to structural engineering only, so that you should be thorough with this, and 1 or 2 times you should sit with the client and you should clarify him what are the consequences, and you should completely thorough with these 5 points from the client. Then you need to understand the clients may not be knowing that location and legal parameters. All the people will not be having around 5, 6, 10 houses, or the people will not be having for most of the people for the Indian middle class, most of the people will be building their home once in their lifetime. Even some of them are not. So that's how we as a structural engineer, we need to have the knowledge of the location and legal parameters. Because if you are going for the location, for some locations only few stories available, for some of the metropolitan cities, or it is town, or it is village limits, whatever it is, for particular to that land or particular to that location, you need to understand what are the legal parameters. That means what are the offsets you need to give for that, and what are the heights you need to restrict for the particular height of the building. So this parameter should be understood by reading the regulations available with respect to local government. It may be municipality, it may be BBMP, corporation, BDA, or something like that. So you need to understand about that. Then the materials available. See, whenever we are going for the design, we'll be considering the particular material. Say, suppose M20. I am considering M20 mix and I am designing, or I am considering M30 mix and I am designing the building. In this site, if the people are not skilled, and if they are providing M20 only, then it will become very difficult for the design. The design is our building is designed for M30, and the site, the people are not having the knowledge, or they are going for M20 to M25, where the structural engineer may not be visiting all the properties of the material, not be checking in every step, will not be there at the site. So you should be thorough with that. You should give one uniform grade of the concrete, and possibly uniform grade of steel also. So M20 or Fe415. So if you are going for lower grade, it will be safe, because even if he is going for higher grade, our building will be safe, and vice versa it will become difficult. So you should be very careful about providing the material available. And soil testing report. So this you should get it done. It is very compulsory as per the regulations from the government also. You should have the full knowledge of the soil report. Even though we are using SBC settlement to calculate the soil subgrade properties, we will be calculating only these 2 things, and dry density of the soil also. But you should have complete soil testing report from the authoritative soil testing authority. Then future developments expected. Say you are having the road of some around, say it is 30 feet road, and the site you are going to construct is, with respect to this, you have around 40 by 60. Just remember that if the road in future, if it may be expanding, it may expand, and we should have the probability. It may be main road, or it may be attached to the main road, district road, village roads, or something like that. You should have that knowledge, and you should give probable offset for that. Or even if you are constructing any columns here, and you should provide the columns after the offset where we are expecting. Say I am having around 450 by 450 columns here. If I provide 450 by 450 column, and if I am having 200 by 600 or 200 by 450 column here, if the road is getting expanded, and it is easy to destroy or destruct this. So whenever we are going for this, if you are designing this column itself to take all the loads coming on this building, and you can destruct or you can destroy this in the future if the road expansion is planned, or say road expansion is sanctioned. But if you take this also into account, and if you are not designing the whole building by knowing the future developments expected in the particular area, then it will be difficult for us to go with the smoothness of the building use in the future. So you should have full knowledge about that also. These are the things, parameters to be considered for the analysis and design of a building. Next we need to go for what are the steps involved in that. Say the client will come to you with site dimensions. So you will tell you what are the site dimensions available, whether it is normally Indian people will tell it is 30 by 40 and 40 by 60 or 50 by 80 or something like that. The client will come with that and he will give you what are the land data or the survey data available with him. Then you need to prepare the plan, or the client directly coming with the architectural plan. So you need whatever it is, you need to design, you need to take the plan and you need to fix the column layout. That is the first step every structural engineer or a civil engineer will do with this. So column layout, you need to fix that. Then you need to go for beam layout. We have different criteria for that. You can't design, you can't fix the column layout. I will be explaining in the subsequent slides now. Then the slabs, the size of the slab, slab thickness. Then what are the loads to be considered? See, any building need to be designed for dead load plus live load, and of course we'll be adding factor of safety, multiplying this with factor of safety, and we are taking that. And there are buildings where the buildings will be there in earthquake zones, or the buildings will be in hilly areas, or the building is high rise or tall building. So all these buildings should be planned as per loads. So the load should be considered. So these loads should be considered for the particular type of building. Say if the building is not in earthquake zone, and if you are taking earthquake limits also, seismic zone, as per, I think you may be knowing that there is a code available as 1893, now it is 2016 is also available. So before that it was only 2000, now it is 2016 is available. If I take that, if I take those loads also into consideration, if the building is not in earthquake zone, then our building will not become economical. So you should be careful about that, what are the loads we are taking and what are the loads we are designing. Next, load combination, the code explains this. Then analysis, we need to design, analyze the building, then we need to go for the design, then reports and drawings. This, if you do this, if you did these 4 steps, if you understand these 8 steps, you will be completely thorough with the design of a building. Then we'll go for, see, just look at this, you have a site here. At the site, then the client will be coming with the line diagram or the plan, then you need to fix the columns. So what are the things where you are fixing the columns you need to prepare? Just look at this. You have the column. See, this column is 200 by 600 and I have 200 by 600 and here also 200 by 600. And here I am providing the column in this direction, I am providing the column in the same direction, and here I am providing the columns in this direction. The orientation of the column is different here. And this, if you want to understand, the basic theory goes to the moment of inertia. Whatever you have studied the moment of inertia, that concept comes here. When you are studying the moment of inertia, suppose if I take the rectangle, this is B and this is B, I is equal to BD cube by 12. Just it is as simple as this. Just look at this, BD cube by 12. And if I am going for simply supported beam with the point load, the deflection will be, what is that? What is the deflection for WL cube by 48 EI? Just look at this, the deflection is inversely proportional to the moment of inertia. So if the deflection is inversely proportional to the moment of inertia and load carrying capacity will be directly proportional to the moment of inertia. So because deflection is inversely proportional to the deflection, when the load is more, the deflection is more, and the load is less, deflection is less. So this is what, so moment of inertia, if I am having very good moment of inertia, more moment of inertia, deflection criteria, deflection is less, when the deflection is less, load carrying capacity will be lower. So from this what you can understand, if I increase the moment of inertia, I will get less deflection, more load carrying capacity. So if I want to increase, just look at this, if I am providing BD cube by 12, see D is more. So suppose this is 2 mm, for the simplicity sake I am taking, and this is 4 mm. If I multiply that, 2 into 4 cube by 12, I will be getting some value. And if I take the ulta, suppose if I am providing 4 mm here and 2 mm here, just look at this, 4 into 2 cube by 12. So just calculate the difference of this. The difference will be substantial differences will be there. What we are doing, we are not changing any material here. We are using the same amount of material for the column, but the load carrying capacity is substantially increasing where I am providing this, whether it is beam, column or whatever it is. So from this what you can understand, there are major axis and minor axis, and major axis and minor axis should be understand thoroughly to locate the columns. That is what you need to remember while providing the orientation of the column. So this is what the people will give orientation in this direction or in this direction or in this direction. So major axis more load, and the distance. See, I am giving one column here to here, another column here to here. The cross section distance between the columns you need to understand how. And the columns will be having the beams, right? When I am having the beams, for the beams we have L by D ratios. L by D ratio will be 7 for cantilevers, 20 for simply supported beams, 26 for continuous beam. So based on this, whatever the depth we are providing for the beams, we are fixing the columns, and that will be the end of the the column layout. After fixing the column layout, we need to provide the beams here, right? So we need to provide the beams, again the beam depth, all those things. Initially we are providing some beam depth, then we are going for the design. Nowadays in modern days we are having so many softwares like STAAD, ETABS or STRUTS, whatever it is. There are so many softwares we are designing by using the software package. But in the olden days or in the as well, if you are to do manually, you can do that. So whatever it is, after calculating, after applying the loads, after applying the loads on the slabs, and after applying the loads on the beams, then you need to calculate what are the reactions at the base of the column. So once you calculate the reactions at the base of the columns, so you can calculate, so from that reaction loads you can calculate what is the area of the footing. So once you get the load on the base of the columns, each columns, you can calculate area of the footing by using SBC and settlement and dry density. All these data you will be getting from soil testing report. So then, see, the loads coming on this to the foundation, and the foundation size, the area of the footing and also the depth of the footing will be calculated by using these reactions and SBC data. So that is the design of footing. So after getting the design of footing, you need to go for foundation design. So foundation design, we will be calculating the size of the footing, that means length, width and depth of the footing, and reinforcement required for the footing. And we have different subjects studied. The foundation engineering we have studied, pile foundation, then in geotechnical engineering how to calculate SBC and borehole problem. All these things you have studied, and from that you will be calculating all this data and we will be fixing the dimension, and we are preparing the footing layout. See, this is one of the important thing. Whenever you are doing the design analysis or design of a building, you are coming from top to bottom, right? Top to bottom. What are the loads on the slab we are applying? We are applying these loads on the slabs, then loads on the beams that will go to the foundation through the beams and columns, and that load, for that load we are calculating the foundation. But whenever we are giving the direction or whenever we are starting the construction, as you know, we need to give the foundation drawings, the footing drawings, the footing details has to be given for the client or the contractor to start with construction. Once we give this footing dimension, see, just look at this. I have this width and also I have a column here, where from where column where I need to place the column, either it is the center or away from the center, eccentric or centric. So all these things will be given in this, and the dimension and reinforcement will be given, and what is the depth of the footing below the ground level, all those things will be provided in the footing drawings. See, just look at this. This is the site which I have shown you before. So this is the site. After taking that, we have given this, and then they have marked just look at this, the white lines you can see here, it is marking of the footing. After marking the footing, they will go for excavation. Then they will make the centering, because as I told you, some columns will be there at the center of the footing itself and some column will be there at the edge, even at the edge of the footing also. So we need to make the centering of that, we need to mark after doing the excavation. Then you need to go for PCC bed, that I will be explaining in another video. After that we need to go for the whatever we will be having this bar bending schedule. Bar bending people will be preparing this column reinforcement, that should be kept in that. So where is the size of that? It may be at the center or away from the center. There I need to place this column reinforcement. Then you need to go for the foundation. So after completing the foundation, just look at this, after completing the foundation, then we need to go for the plinth beams. So above the plinth beams, walls will be coming. So while selecting the plinth beams, what are the criteria we need to consider? That also I will tell you in the next class. For simplicity's sake, I am telling you, wherever the walls are there I need to run the plinth beam. And also even the walls are not there, if I am having columns here, see one column here, one column here, I need to connect this by using, so that is called as tie beam. So these are the two things whenever we are going for the plinth. So when I am going for the foundation, I will be explaining the plinth wherever we need to give the plinth beam once again. So for the simplicity's sake, you need to understand that this is the plinth beam we are providing. After plinth, we are going to construct the columns. The column concreting will happen. So after concreting, then we'll go to the walls. Just look at this, the walls. Below the walls we'll be having the masonry, that is SSM work also. So after that we'll be going for the walls, then the foundation. So this is what the main basic thing when the structural engineering role comes. And in future, if you are, this is only, I told you, only for G+1 building. This is in the construction. You can see the photo taken picture, that is just 2-3 days back. This photo has been taken. This is under construction. Once this completes, I can upload that picture also with this video. You can, at that time you can watch this. Then if you are going for high-rise building, buildings may not be G+1 always. You will be having the buildings G+7, G+8. This is G+7 building. If you make the modeling, it looks like G+7 building. So if you go for different story height buildings, we need to go for different parameters that you will be studying in your higher semester or in the MTech or on your own also you can study. So you need to study the subjects to become completely strong about the design. If you want to become a good design engineer, you have to study the theory. That is the only way available for any structural engineer. So these are the different subjects we have. Just briefly, if you go for that, structural dynamics and earthquake engineering, if you are designing a building where earthquake zone is there, even if you come to Bangalore also, the minimum zone we have is zone 2. The Bangalore is the safest place as far as earthquake is concerned, as per the predictions. Zone 2 is the one where with respect to that zone, what are the zone factor, what are the importance factor, so what is the soil type, all these things will be considered, and all those will be studied in earthquake engineering. And the earthquake loads will be dynamic, that's why it is structural dynamics. Structural dynamics and earthquake engineering are the two subjects you will be studying to design the structure for earthquake resistance. That's it. Even though the structure, you cannot make any structure as completely earthquake proof. Then foundation engineering. As I told you, the foundation, the one thing is soil may not be strong to take the loads and SBC may be very less. And even though if you are going for very high rise structure and also if you are going for more basements, we have seen the buildings where we are having 5 basements, even in the Bangalore itself. So whenever we are going for the basements, our SBC is less, or high rise building where the load is more, we need to understand what are the types of foundation you need to provide, what are the type of soil over there, and what will be the reaction of the soil. All those things you will be studying in your foundation engineering. And finite element method, of course, if you are having any structures, more structures, you may be knowing that accurate results will be coming by finite element method, and that is the method which we have used in the software package also. And advanced RCC, there are some criteria where you will be getting the complex in providing the reinforcement, that also you will be studying in that. Advanced structural analysis, of course, Next stage of structural analysis, what you have studied in your degree: theory of plates and shells, and theory of plasticity and elasticity, analysis and design of star structures if you are going for high-rise structures. This is what the condition you need to study, and these are what the subjects you need to study, and from theory it is coming. Guys, one thing you remember, I have the experience from teaching as well as from the industrial experience. From that experience I am telling you, and most of the students will be having some of the misguidance from their seniors. I don't know whether their seniors guiding properly, or they are not understood correctly or not. Some people will say whatever you are studying in engineering will be different, whatever you will be doing in the field will be different. See, if you are studying engineering and if you are going for any software, if you are going to become any software professional, then it will become different. If you are the thing you are studied civil engineering and you are going to the software professional, there it may be different. Only thing, whatever you have studied, the interaction, communication, all those things may be working in the software, but may not be using all these things. But if you are going for civil engineering and you are going to become civil engineer, and civil engineering profession if you want to continue, these are the theory which is required. If you are not having any theory knowledge, then it will be very difficult, and then you have to study. Even if you want to become, if you go to the field, if you go to any industry, without studying, whether you are studied or not, if you are not knowing the knowledge, if you are not having the knowledge of civil engineering basics, you need to study when you go to the industry. That is what, there is no escape from the theory. You need to study the theory. Please read well, and whatever you are reading, please read it from the basics. And basics, so whatever the basics you are studying, and anything you are studying, whenever, not only for civil engineering, whenever anything you are studying, you need to study by knowing or by keeping what are the application of that particular topic. That is what the engineering. That is the difference between science and engineering students. So please complete thorough about your basics. Whatever you are studying from now onwards, you should concentrate on the application of the particular topic, then you study that. So with this I am completing this basic knowledge, basic approach, the basic practical approach for the civil engineering. So from now onwards you will be getting all the videos like GATE exam is nearing, and I will be starting that. Then I will concentrate more on GATE videos in the subsequent classes. So please subscribe to our channel if you have not subscribed yet, and watch the videos, share and tell other students also, and please comment on the comment box if you want to improve anything, or if you want me to make any more videos. And thank you very much.